First, I'd like to welcome everyone here to the Charleston Digital Corridor's March 2013 Fridays at the Corridor. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce you to the crew from Brainpower Software. We've got Taylor Brockman, Melissa Wheel, and Caitlin Perry. Together, they'll show us how to cut through the clutter with big data, each from their unique perspective. And without further ado, Taylor Brockman.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning. My name is Taylor Brockman with Brainpower Software here in Charleston, South Carolina. We have just graduated from Flagship. So we spent our 12 months here in Flagship incubating the company, and we have been set free. Actually, you can leave them on. Yeah, we've been set free into the world. So we are now working professional services, a lot of data exchange, real-time service integration, security, single sign-on, all the software type of stuff. So today, we're going to talk with you about Vini, Vidi, Vici. That's what that stands for, right? The Internet of Things. The number of sensors in the world is exponentially growing. Here's a representation of streetlights, traffic lights, utility, sewer lids, even construction curbs, all with a sensor, all with a recorder. This is why we had to go to IPv6, because the old IPv4 internet addressing system ran out of numbers. The number of these devices is increasing. They don't sleep. They're watching us all the time. And they're really good at watching what human beings do. There's a lot of them, and they're really inexpensive. This is the demo that I'm going to show you at the end of today, end of this morning. You can get a full RFID door system computerized with a microchip and a data logger and a sensor. You can track 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 human beings for the low price of $13.40. I carry a dumb phone for reasons we'll talk about at the next presentation. Verizon is giving away microcomputers that run on your nightstand. Sensors everywhere. They watch you in your car. They watch you in your home. They watch you when you sleep. And they are also incredibly inexpensive. You even get, look at that, you even get free shipping. They want you to have these sensors. The youth of America is connected. 25% of teenagers use the internet on their telephones, on their smartphones. You can see that as I was preparing this presentation, the Washington Post advertising engine knew where I had previously been. That Verizon page had a sensor on it. So the next web page I hit, it knows what I was just looking at. And it probably knows what I was looking for. Get our insights, get our data, get our analytics, our recommendations. It knows what I was doing. That's pretty cool. So it's the Pew Internet American Life project. It was announced, the latest one was released 2 weeks ago. And teenagers are almost always connected to email, texts, and apps through their smartphones that are free. I love this slide. So I'm a firm believer, and this is for the next presentation, that the human network is online. We all know pretty much instantly what others around us are thinking through our smartphones. We can tell others around us what we're thinking through our smartphones, through our sensors. And I believe that the Internet of Things, the Internet of Machines, is now online. In media, it's been represented as, of course, Skynet. But these number of sensors, this machine-to-machine automated communication is here. It's online. And I'm most excited about these guys, automated drones. So it takes it to the next level, where think about it like Yahoo, Inktomi, Google 10 years ago developed the web crawler. And so the web crawler was a robot that went out and talked to all the other web servers, collected the information, indexed it, and made it searchable. These little guys and the Google self-driving cars are like reality crawlers. They can just go on their own, learn, explore, collect. They're like mobile sensors. The best project I've seen is like $149 for a build-at-home drone kit. So the 3 V's actually mean volume, variety, and velocity. So that's what big data means to me, is the massive amounts of it. Exponential sensors, exponential data. Variety. It's a beautiful thing that the marketplace is fractured. So all these little companies develop their own little products. And it's a challenge to get them all to work together, but I think it's a strength. So everybody's data format's just a little bit different. Yeah, there's some standards bodies. But when an engineer puts his touch on something, he gives it a little bit of personality. And it's got its differences, either explicit or implicit. And then velocity. So I carry a 4G LTE hotspot that in Charleston and all the other metro areas can get 1.5 megabits a second down wirelessly. We installed high-speed cable internet at our new place, $39 a month for 20 megabits a second. The velocity at which this data is coming in is staggering. Okay, so how are we coping with all this? We'll talk about how the industry has responded, and then next we're going to change over to Melissa and Caitlin. They're going to talk about the stories and how people are visualizing this and representing it. Okay, so how are we coping with this? How are we coping with the hive mind? How are we coping with Skynet? We have some enterprise and some open source software that the industry has developed to deal with this. So you've got everything from the big boys, the Oracles, which I'm excited about, the America's Cup in San Francisco this fall. You've got the IBMs, the big blues, the Microsofts, a whole community of open source technologies, free as in beer and free as in speech, and then other analysis platforms on top to help you really visualize and understand the data. This is where the enterprise companies are succeeding. They're not only handling it all, but they're able to make recommendations and change their business direction based on their analysis of it. My friend and yours, JSON, is another coping mechanism. So we have Jason Statham, the scary Jason, and then the friendly Jason. This is the new representation of unstructured data, data with variety. It's some fundamental building blocks. It's maps, lists. That's about it. And what it lets any developer or anybody really with a keyboard and a screen can type and structure their data like this. And all of a sudden, it's interchangeable with all the software you saw on the other page. Another coping mechanism is storage. So this is Newegg yesterday. Our friends Toshiba are selling 3 terabytes for $119.99. That's down to just under 4 cents a gigabyte. Library of Congress. This is really old, 2009. It's like a light year ago. By that time, it was 74 terabytes of information online digitally available. At today's Toshiba hard drive rate, just under $3,000 to store that. Another strategy is to educate our communities. So last week we had the first annual Code Show, where Charleston Digital Corridor invited 3 premier speakers from across the country. Dock Street Theater hosted an amazing day. MongoDB was represented, an amazing speaker who understands all the software that we talked about. And now we're replicating that enthusiasm, we're replicating that knowledge out to our community so that all of us can start participating in the data enterprise. It's a really fun job. I'd highly recommend it. So with that, we're going to change over to Caitlin and Melissa, and I'll be back up later. It's like camouflage.
Hi, I'm Melissa Wheel. I've been an intern at Brainpower Software now for almost a year. It's been awesome. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about big data specifically. And when you think about big data, you think about companies that deal with large information sets like Google, Facebook, and Amazon. This data is generally high in volume, high in velocity, and high in variety. And with this large data, we need to find cost-effective ways of information process in order to help us with decision-making processes. So as you can see, in the past 20 years, data has taken a giant leap from terabytes to petabytes. And it doesn't matter how much data your company has, like whether it be terabytes or gigabytes or petabytes, you can still do so much analytics with it that can help your company. But with all this data, a lot of companies are feeling lost, like with buzzwords like data-driven and just the 3 V's that Taylor was talking about. Companies don't know what to do, and it's called data analysis paralysis. But we're here to take a step back and kind of help a little bit, demystify the data. Previously, companies would base their decision-making opinions on the highest paid person's opinion. So they would have gut instinct from years of work in the company. But now, a lot more companies are going more towards data-driven decision-making. And what you really want is something in between, where you're using your gut instinct, but you're having data to back up these decisions. In a recent study, it was shown that there was a 26% increase in productivity for data-driven companies when compared to non-data-driven companies in 600 C-level executives. And in the next 3 years, this figure is expected to jump to 41%. So you really want to jump on this data-driven bandwagon because it will really help out your company. So with data, companies are looking to find ways to cut costs, ways to help with customer service, ways to increase productivity, and just overall make better decision-making processes. And data has been shown in the fields of operations, marketing, product development, and human resources to help greatly within companies. In 2009, UPS actually put sensors in all their trucks, and they monitored the location of the trucks, the speeds they were going, how many times these trucks were put in reverse. And this data was updated daily into the UPS data center. And by 2011, they were actually able to reduce gas consumption by 8.4 million gallons, and they cut off 85 million miles off of their routes. In November of last year, Google launched its Google Trends product for flu trends, and they based this on the fact that most patients were Googling what their symptoms were for flu-like illnesses before they actually went to the doctors. And this data is updated daily into the Google database, and they were able to pinpoint where influenza outbreaks were happening before the CDC was able to see it, because the CDC is only getting information on a weekly to monthly basis. And Google is hoping that this new product will help public health officials find influenza outbreaks before anybody else can find it. And this is a really cool site. They've got like great visualizations for where things are happening, so you guys should definitely check it out just to see a little bit about Google Analytics. So you might be wondering where you as your company should start using data. And the first thing is to break down your data silos. You want to integrate all this data into one easy to use location, and hopefully find a software that can easily help build visualizations for your data. And I personally have loved Tableau software. It's great when you want to visualize your data and see patterns and trends that were before invisible. And going into visualizations, I'd like to present Caitlin Perry.
So I'm not a data scientist. I don't really like spreadsheets, and I don't really like numbers. And probably some of you feel that way too. So how do you take massive amounts of data, numbers, spreadsheets, and turn it into something that you can learn from, engage with, and make sense of? And like I said, I'm not a data scientist, but I'm a people manager, and I'm a person who moonlights as a writer, so I like stories. And visualizations let us tell stories with data. So Amy, I am going to ask if you could turn the lights off for this one, because I think it's going to look a little better. This is a data visualization that Stephen Von Worley did. And I'm actually going to show you the live site. Stephen Von Worley took a 5 million point data set. And what this data set was color swatches. And they took 5 million people, showed them color swatches, and asked them to name them. What we have at the top are women's responses, and what we have at the bottom are men's responses.
Amen.
They go across. The larger the bubble, the more people responded with that name. The higher it goes up, the more women responded. The lower to the bottom, the more men. So let's take a look at this. And some of it is what you would expect. Purple.
I know that.
Green. You got that one. When we go up to what the women... Buttercup. That's a nice one. Dusty rose pink. Now let's go down here to the man. Dark yellow. Vomit. Y'all are gross. But this is a great visualization, because what would you have done with a 5 million point data set? What Stephen Von Worley did was found a visualization that's engaging. You want to look at this, you want to play around, and you want to click. And was also able to show the gender of the responses, the size of the responses, and do it in a way that's engaging and calls back to the data set. The problem with visualizations is that people do them. And people aren't truthful like data. People have all sorts of things that hold them back from showing the truth. So what I'm going to show through a series of visualizations is the things we have to be careful about when we deal with data. So one is bias. Data is facts, but we can show facts in a certain way to get across the point that we want to get across. So this is a real chart that exists, and what it shows is the highest tax rate if the Bush tax cuts were to expire. And what we had was 35, and it was going to go up to 39.4. That's the real fact. Both of these charts are showing that. They look pretty different, though. The issue here is the scale on the left goes from 34 to 42, and the one on the right goes from 0 to 100. And neither of those is a good representation of what actually happened. When we move over here and we go to maybe 10% to 45 into a more reasonable scale of what could happen, now we see a jump in a way that makes sense and is reasonable. The facts are the same, but the way we visualize them are different. Next, I'm going to show a series of visualizations by David McCandless. He's a great data journalist, and I highly recommend going to his website, and all this information will be at the end of the presentation and online. These are true facts. This is the amount spent on different countries' military budgets per year. And if you look at this, this probably isn't surprising. It's what you would have guessed. And it's true. We could put China, the UK, Japan, France, Germany, Saudi Arabia, Russia, South Korea, and India all inside of the USA's budget. We have an enormous budget. But when we look at it as a percentage of GDP, maybe it's not the same big spend that it was. Maybe the USA is just a wealthy country, but we're certainly not spending 26% of our country's wealth on the military. So while we do have a large and powerful military, we're not exactly the same militaristic nation that Myanmar, formerly Burma, is. And how about when we look at active forces? It's no surprise China is the biggest, and the USA has 1.5 million. That's a lot of people, but we're a big country. And when we look at it as a percentage of people within the country, soldiers per 100,000 people, we're way down at 45th. North Korea, Eritrea, Israel, more of their people are soldiers than any of ours. So what does this say? All of these were true, and you could make certain perceptions and certain judgments based on the data, but they don't give you the whole picture. Because we can't get a whole picture, we have to layer our data. So one data set is not usually enough to make a decision. This is a data set that Melissa and I found, and we played around just to teach ourselves how to use this tool, Tableau. What I'm going to show you is marriage rates in our country. So as the colors get lighter, the marriage rate is declining in each of those states over time. Now, Melissa and I pretended that we ran a state government. And doing some research, we found it made sense for people to get married. If you run a government, you want your citizens to get married, their healthcare costs are lower, they have higher economic stability. It's good. You have to take care of less people if they have husbands and wives to take care of them. So what do we want to do as a government to get people married? So we look to see what increases marriage rates and what decreases divorce rates. And we found data sets to set against this information. And this progression shows marriage rates by divorce rates. And as it turned out, though we did see a divorce rate increase over time, it's not a huge jump in the last 40 years. So then we looked at marriage and divorce rates by a whole bunch of things that we thought might affect it. We thought really religious people might get married at a higher rate and get divorced at a lower rate. we thought maybe household income. We had an obesity data set, so we set that up there. And what we found is none of these things correlate to high marriage rates and low divorce rates. Here's where we found something compelling. This is median age at marriage. So, seats at the top, women and men. And you can see, and it may not surprise you, where people have higher age at marriage. You can see up here in the northeast corridor, down the left coast over here, and it remains pretty low over here in Idaho and Utah, a little lower in the south. Now, if you overlay these two with the map we have on the top, which is divorce rates, you'll see New York, very low divorce rate, very high age of first marriage. And here we have age at first marriage moving up over time from 1990 to 2010. And it went up and up and up. So we came up with, if you run a government, you have a difficult job, which is to try and get people to get married, but to wait. You want them to get married, but not until they hit up here at 26, 27, 28 years old. I'm going to give one more story, which might not sound related to this, but has the same lesson. If you are a woman and you go to Target and you buy vitamins, and a couple weeks later you buy cotton balls, and then a couple weeks after that you buy unscented lotion, Target knows you're pregnant. Now, what do these things have to do with pregnancy? I mean, we could guess vitamins, but the rest of them, who the heck knows? And it doesn't matter. What Target knew is that most people come to Target to buy a certain set of products. And if you're anything like me, these are exactly the kind of products you buy at Target. But they knew that the only time you can get people who are already set in their brand loyalties, in their shopping habits, in all of those consumer activities, is when something dramatic comes into their life. And what is more dramatic and more disturbing to their patterns than having a baby? So they wanted to figure out how to get these people who were already Target consumers to become new Target consumers, and they had the data to do it. The lesson here is that Target didn't have large data sets where somehow they could see, oh my goodness, when people buy vitamins and then they buy cotton balls, they're pregnant. They knew the query that they wanted to make. They had a baby registry, and they could track all of those people's purchases. So this was a mix between someone in marketing knowing this is the people that we want to target, and the people in data saying we have the data sets and we can do it. But it wasn't just a matter of having large swaths of data. It was knowing how to answer the right questions. So with this critical thinking to answer the right questions, and the ability to layer data and separate ourselves from our own ideas about what data should be and what business decisions we should make, we can create what Melissa was talking about, this mixed approach of knowing this is what I think we should do, and here's the data to back it up. With that, I'm going to send it right back over to Taylor.
All right, thank you. I like the storytelling. Yeah, the storytelling was one of those things that we did before we could write. That's how the information was passed. Okay. So we're good on time. So I'm going to walk you through, first of all, the lexicon, the words that I use every day. So hopefully I'll teach y'all a new word or two today. And then we'll go over to our demonstration where I'll show you a data set that the Charleston Digital Corridor provided us, and I've blended that with a few of my other sets from my personal cloud. We'll talk about personal clouds. And we'll show off Tableau. OLTP, OLAP, NoSQL, online transactional processing. This is your cash register. This is what rings the dollars in. OLAP, OLAP. This is where the guys in the back look at the reports at the end of the month. This is where you do your analytical processing. NoSQL, moving from a relational database structure into a better way of dealing with unstructured data. So document stores, key value stores, grid stores. Dimensions, measures, time series. So a dimension is, give it like an axis with which you can divide your data. So a dimension of cars would be color. Some are red, some are blue, some are vomit.
Buttercup yellow.
Buttercup yellow. That's nicer. Measures is purely just counting. How many of those cars are blue? How many of those cars are buttercup yellow? And time series is special. It's a special type of dimension. Was it Brian Greene that describes how all of us are always moving at the speed of light? It just happens that that fourth dimension is time. So the faster you're moving through one of the three physicals, the slower you move through time. So time is an important dimension. Oh, it's a good one. I've been waiting for that for years. So much of our data happens in time, and we need to think about things in terms of quarters, years, microseconds, nanoseconds. Partitioning, sharding, cap theorem. Partitioning is dividing your data up. If I am looking at mobile advertising impressions and I have a global deployment, chances are I don't need to connect my West Coast California database with my European data center. I can actually partition that data and streamline the requests into it from different locations. Partitioning was the old word. It described within a single system how you would divide the data up. I put some of this on hard drive A and some of this on hard drive B. Sharding is the new word that describes geophysical separation of the data. You can cross data centers. It can automatically balance to where the hottest areas are. And then cap theorem. The nerds love this one. This is where you have three things that you want to do, and you can only do two of them. So it's consistency. Help me out here, Bob.
I forgot what the A is, but T is partitioning, I believe, as well.
Partitioning.
Yeah.
So it describes it's a theory that says if I want my data to be very readable in many locations, then I'm going to have a lot of costs when I start to collect data and distribute it. Just some really cool stuff. Okay? What is a vegetarian zombie's favorite food? Grains. So understanding your data at a level of granularity. So if we were to take this talk, every syllable that I'm saying and timestamp it, that would be a very low grain of data. I would have massive amounts of it. It would be hard to move from one place to another. Very high grain. So to deal with that, we aggregate. Instead of dealing with a single person, I talk about a family. I talk about a neighborhood. I talk about a city. I talk about a state. I aggregate along dimensions. And the axis. So the axis is a neat word because it ties in the visual nature. Just like in school, every number that you write in your lab notebook should have a unit on it. It's important. every visualization that you show should have a clearly thought out set of axes. And axes are usually dimensions. Master data management, tenants, policies. So this is Mr. Bob Williams that taught me about tenants. Master data management, you have the source data, and then you have the activity data. Think about the metaphor would be, the source data would be my Visa card, my credit card. And then all the activity data is all the purchase logs that I make with that. This is a multi-million-dollar industry for consulting. Healthcare organizations, banks have consultants that come in and coach them on their master data management strategy. They have all these different systems, these mainframes, these enterprises, these buses that they've purchased over the year, and they need to remove the silos. You need to get everything talking to one another. That's what MDM is. Tenants. Do you build a software system that only has one customer in it at a time? Do you build an analytical processing unit that only has one customer in it at a time? Or do you build a system that's scalable that I can put all of my 10,000 customers in one pile and look at them all together? Does your business system support one customer at a time? Or does it support all of them together? Policies. This is very important, data security. So if I have one of these analytical engines, can anyone from customer service that answers calls every day go and see all of my financials? Which users have rights, policies to which parts of the system? So you got to think about it that way as well. So we're talking about this stuff. These are the words that we use every day in our jobs. The conversation is going. And what's fascinating is that there's some literature, there is some web content, there are thought leaders in the field, and what's happening now is these early adopters, like us, are now learning this stuff, and we're talking about it. There's no single coach that can come in and tell you, oh, you do it this way, and it'll be perfect for you. And so we're reaching out across company boundaries to just have these nerd clubs, just to say, what are you doing? How are you solving this problem? And we're kind of copying each other's examples, learning from each other. This is one that I did on Monday. So this is a system that collects sensors in the field, receives those over RF wireless network, handles them. So this is our volume. Thankfully, it's all our product right now, so the variety is pretty low, but it's massive volume. And we're talking about how do we take this relational database, we've already thrown a cache on it, how do we take a NoSQL engine and plug it in here so that we can help consumers visualize their long-term energy usage in their home from the sensors. So it's taking these enterprise systems that we've historically done with relational databases and putting in this new technology to make it faster, just to try it. And if you can see off to the side here, here's one of my favorites. The DBA, who's super old school. Like, love your DBA. I love DBAs. They're so smart. But he didn't want to put a real-time dependency on our OLAP, our analytical processing database, just because it's so massive. There's no way that you can push that up and have it respond to a web page. We've got to come up with a workaround. And we're exploring NoSQL. Okay. Real quick here, future. I like this one. It doesn't have to be scary. Some people get creeped out by Facebook stalking. Some people get creeped out by the fact that they might have a open network connection on a smartphone by their head all night as they're sleeping and dreaming. I don't know. The science fiction writers of the past century have thought about this. Asimov's 3 laws that control inherently in the robots. The company that I have found that's leading this thought is Evernote. Evernote has released the 3 laws of their data. Your data is always yours. It's never theirs. Your data is always portable. If you want to leave Evernote, move to a new system, you can. You're not locked in. And your data is always protected, meaning that no one else can get to it. No one has the policy access to get into it. If a server goes down, if a hard drive melts, it's still there. It's always protected. And I believe that these three laws are going to dictate the new industry of personal data clouds. We're starting to deal with it now. Our email is overwhelming. Our Dropboxes are getting full. When I go to Target, do I own my receipt or does Target own my receipt? Where do I store my receipts? Evernote is progressive. They are the only company that I've found that has a change log on their privacy policy. They take it seriously. They tell the consumer why things are changing, when they're changing, and how they're changing. As a software guy, I love this. It's like release notes. I just upgraded to version 4.1. What do I get? Okay, demonstration time. So we'll wrap it up. This is Charleston Harbor. This is a fun demo. When you're out on a boat and you don't have GPS, say you're out here somewhere, you don't really know exactly where you are. So one of the tricks is what's called line of sight triangulation. So I can take a hand-to-bearing compass and I can take a sight to this water tank. It's a water tower here in Mount Pleasant, Old Village. And I get a bearing. I can draw a line, and I know I'm somewhere along this line. I don't know where. So what I do is I take a second reading. I will go over here and get spire. So this is one of the church spires of downtown Charleston. And I'll get this reading. I like to pick up something here off of James Island. And the more that I draw in, the more exact I can pin in. 3 is good, 4 is better. What I'm asserting this morning is that you can do that with personal identity for the data collection that already exists through sensors and through social media. I can take 3 or 4 bearings off things, and I can get to my fingerprint that proves that I am who I am. So today, I'm going to show you a demo of taking our flagship RFID sensors, combining those with one of my cloud HTTP access logs that I use, software as a service, TripIt, that scans my email, and my bank, my credit card that I use for my business travel. This is my personal cloud. It's just not formalized yet. So we're going to go look at the doors first. It's a good one. So this is what it looks like afterwards. Let's go look at it before. This is my working folder. Notepad++ is awesome. So what I did here for the privacy of others, I'm a huge believer in data privacy. I scrubbed out anybody who's not a City of Charleston associate and anybody who's not a Brainpower software associate. So our data set here, I call this header CSV, where the first line of the CSV file is the columns. Huge portability advantages there. Time series data, and then some dimensions. So the dimensions are who is it? Where do they key in? So what I do in Tableau is I simply go to connect to data, and I would go to text file, and all I have to do is just double click one of these things, and it just brings it into Tableau. It runs in Windows on my desktop, no server. And so what I get then, go back to our data here. It immediately gives me this visualization where I have access to everything that came in the file. These are the headers that you just saw in the text file, and I can drag these guys on and look at them. So here's just a proportion chart. I want to see who keys in the most. So overall, I think it's pretty even running between Amy and Tula that key in. We can simply divide the data. So let's see how I did this here. So by entry, I drug control panel and device up on the columns. So let me show you how I did that. Back to data. Just drag control panel. It immediately splits my data along columns. See how fast that was? And device. You just simply drag and drop these things to explore your data set. So here we have it now broken up by flagship 2. We know that Tula sits in flagship 2. We even have the back entryway by Ernest's office. There he is. So he's laying down all these little breadcrumbs. So here we have the Starbucks side entrance. And here we have the front entrance for flagship. Okay, let's look at it on an axis. So all of 2012 is the data set we're working with. We're going to go here, look at, this is one of the awesome parts of Tableau. You can break out your time grain. So by month, even down to day. You can see here that around the holiday time, you start to see very few accesses. So that kind of like it matches reality. I'm seeing what I would expect. All right. So let's go over now and look at the next set. So the next one is going to be the IP addresses. So I have a little cloud server. It's my homepage. And I just log the IP address of whenever my web browser starts up. It's totally totally nerdy. This was a little bit different because I had to actually transform it a little bit and look up these IP addresses. So I just use Ruby for this. Dealing with this JSON structures, the hashes, the lists, I just do that with script. And the script to do it is about 194 lines. These little pieces that can transform. So IP address, Tableau makes it great. You can just infer longitude, latitude on X and Y and put a map behind it. So it shows me the cities that I have accessed. The color that I used here, the scale, is the year. So the darker, the more dust-colored rose it is, the more recent it has been. Divided up on the timeline here, just a little sort of Gantt chart. And really, we're getting in now to the details of, let's look at a specific time frame. Right there. So I had 2 web browser hits from San Antonio, Texas on the 27th. Does that match the other data set? Let's go look. Little easier way to see it. September 2012. There it is. Okay, so let's go back to our door access. Was I keying in on the 27th here? So I'm going to keep only September 20th. Sure enough. That I don't have any record of my flagship access on the 27th. Okay, so next we're going to go look at my tripit. So, Word. And we'll correlate it again, so we're drawing another one of these triangulation lines. Tripit is amazing. It scans your email and collects all your trips. So here you go. San Antonio, Texas, September 27th. Another line that tells me where I was. I also, by the way, raced the 24 hours of lemons. Your car has to be $500 or less. We race a 1984 Volvo 740. It's not very fast. Okay, so let's go look at that. Okay, so next is the Visa. So I just went into BB&T online. I hit export as CSV, saved this to my hard drive, and I did 0 transformation on this file. I just brought it right into Tableau. And so what you can see, I drilled into this area here. This is Q3, so September. And I see some purchases here, extraordinary purchases. What are those on a business card? Usually plane travel. So what's neat with Tableau is that I immediately saw the size and the scale. So size is frequency, scale is amount. And what's neat is that you can right-click, view data, see the aggregated, and then go see the lowest grain. Remember our zombies. So here's the things that I purchase. Around the 27th, Dunkin' Donuts in San Antonio, Texas. So that's that fourth line that confirms that I was actually there. So, if we look here, there's other little things in there too. What kind of person has a pet keeper's dog boarding fee? Someone with dogs. Someone who has business travel. So it's not only am I triangulating and getting to the exact point, I can infer then, now that I know where I am, I know where everything else is around me too. And I think that's where we're headed in the next 10 years.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
On the grain with the Dunkin' Donuts, can you drill down even further and find out what you had at Dunkin' Donuts for that $7.60 in that format?
I could if I had my receipt data set, and I believe I will be able to do that within 5 years. I believe that I will have a way to take all of my receipts and bring them into my Dropbox, and then I could tie them together with the set to get even lower grain. I can't today because there's no protocol to exchange purchase and receipt information other than email.
And loyalty cards.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, there's special rules, and I think I really like the rules about how you cannot use your Visa purchasing information to track consumers. It actually has to be an opt-in process. So that's why it doesn't exist in the industry today. Okay. So what we've been able to do, we're almost done here. We've been able to take these 4 disparate data sets that are in my personal cloud, triangulate them, and end up and know that it is actually me in the middle there. And if I was missing one of these, I would be able to, almost knowing just my sensor logs, my bank statement, and access logs, I would be able to infer where in the country I currently was. I would almost be able to see into my email inbox without having access to it. That's cool. So that's it for today. Thank you all so much. We have 3 minutes and 20 seconds left. If anybody has any questions that any 3 of us could answer.
So I have a question then, Taylor. Great presentation, guys. Thank you. Are you finding right now with kind of the buzz of big data, is it a net positive or net negative when you're talking with your clients or customers? Or does it just depend on who you're talking to?
It depends on who you're talking to. It's a good question. So the companies that have had the budget allocated, at least for a prototype or research, are a step ahead of the curve.
Gotcha.
If you're walking in cold to a human resources information system department that's still kind of working on a mainframe, they are afraid by it. It's net negative.
Gotcha.
So the progressive companies like Spark
Yeah.
are embracing it, and it's going to be the way of the future.
Because that helped me gauge where, at least around here, I guess, with your clients, where the adoption curve is right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're trying to sneak it in the back door with visualizations. So we're doing all of this processing, all this analysis on the offline that no one ever sees the numbers. What they see is the stories.
Right.
So we're distributing it through storytelling. Yes, sir?
What's BrainPower actually selling? Is it selling the software, or is it selling the analysis of someone else's data?
So BrainPower software is a knowledge services company.
So it's more of a consulting based on someone else's data.
Yes, it's the consulting arm. So I've found that clients love it when you just tell them everything, that you don't hold any secrets back. I think of it like a cooking show. We're basically celebrity chefs that go in and cook on film. So many of the consumer audience loves to watch, see all the ingredients, all the steps, but they never actually go cook it themselves. We're really good about presenting what we're doing and doing consulting services. And then, so our last presentation was all about minimum viable product. Every 3 to 6 months, we're dropping a new product in and trying to get it to take off in one of our consulting engagements.
I know that with the target slide, do you do any product recommendation based on prior sales? Like a recommendation engine?
No, we deal more with people, I would say. And though, while people are scared of large streams of data, we will show them things like when their people are accessing products that we've built for them, and then suddenly that data is not scary, it's the most amazing thing they've ever seen. But we're not so much in the consumer business, so that's why we're not doing product recommendations.
Yeah. I would say that it is on the roadmap. So if anybody wants to start a company with me, come talk to me. And it would be about, so new healthcare has individual consumer choice. Which plans are people researching? Which plans are people purchasing? I think there's a huge amount of opportunity there to make a benefit election recommendation. That's why we're just researching now. We're beginning to understand human data, just so we can build products that are around our data in the future. Thank you all so much. It's so much fun to see everybody. Have a wonderful day.